there is nothing like religious persecution in this country. It is non-existent. We don't want it to exist in anybody's mind.
Information and National Orientation Minister says no religious persecution in any parts of Nigeria as speculated.
House of Representatives Public Accounts Committee recovers 28.7 billion naira from 2 oil companies indebted to the Federation account.
African Development Bank and the International Institute of Tropical Agriculture have reaffirmed commitment to transforming Africa's agricultural landscape.
And on Good Morning Nigeria, today we shall examine the Nigeria Correctional Service probe.
The Nigeria Correctional Service, formerly known as Nigerian Prison Service, is charged with the responsibility for the custody, reform, rehabilitation, and reintegration of offenders back into the society.
And for some clarification on what you just said, the Nigeria Correctional Service is a federal phenomenon with the responsibility to oversee the welfare of inmates, treatment and rehabilitation. It also oversees the medical needs of the custodians.
However, following allegations of corruption, abuse of power, torture, cruel, inhuman and degrading treatment against the Nigerian Correctional Service, the federal government established a probe panel towards fact findings in a bid to reform the agency.
Indeed, the panel has concluded its second public hearing as it affects bad state of infrastructure, poor feeding program, complaints of inmates, ex-inmates, and of course the families of inmates.
That's true, Larry. The panel also heard from staff and former staff of the Correctional Service, the judiciary, as well as it concerns adjournment of cases and high number of awaiting trials. Law enforcement agencies and lawyers under civil society groups who have championed defense of many inmates who can't afford the services of legal representation.
In addition, the investigative panel also granted audience to management staff of the Correctional Service, civil society organizations that have been critical of the agency over human rights abuses, especially against the vulnerable groups.
The Correctional Service, which aims to rehabilitate inmates, have had to contend with numerous challenges, and so the probe panel has availed stakeholders opportunity to address issues stalling rehabilitation of inmates and to prefer ideal processes towards proper rehabilitation of inmates for reintegration into the society. I am Ademola Adeye. Welcome to Good Morning Nigeria, the first for the week.
And I'm Henry John. Thank you for joining us this morning. We're reaching you live on the network service of the NTA, and we're right here at our headquarters in Abuja. Shortly, the newspaper review, which Chukwudi Okolie Ogbaja will be on. I wanted to say something.
I know.
But, let's just quickly get on with the news. Stella Inameti is waiting to serve us. Stella, good morning to you.
Good morning, Yenre and Ademola. Here is the morning news. Information and National Orientation Minister Mohammed Idris has clarified that there is no religious persecution in any part of Nigeria, as being speculated in some quarters. The minister was reacting to reports that some Nigerians in the United States are suggesting a case of persecution of a particular religion in parts of the country. Information Minister also explained that a special committee, as indicated by President Bola Tinubu recently, would address all of these issues when constituted.
Mr. President has been working to ensure that there is security for everyone. Of course, we are not yet there. It's not yet El Dorado. It's not as if this has been totally, the insecurity, the situation in the country has been totally taken care of. But we know that with the kind of effort we are making in the last 2 years, it has drastically reduced. Nigeria is a country of God, where we all believe in God, Christians, Muslims. We cannot allow one particular religion to suffer as a result of the belief of the other one. Your freedom, everybody is granted his freedom, but of course your freedom must end where the other person's own begin. This is the message of Mr. President. The committee will be put in place. It's still work in progress. Everyone will participate to ensure that we have a peaceful Nigeria. But we want to say that there is nothing like religious persecution in this country. It is non-existent. We don't want it to exist in anybody's mind.
In the meantime, the House of Representatives, through its Public Accounts Committee, has recovered 28.7 billion naira from 2 oil companies indebted to the Federation account. House spokesman Akin Rotimi, in a statement, says the committee is currently investigating 45 oil companies collectively owing the federal government $1.7 billion in outstanding liabilities, as contained in the audit report released by the Office of the Auditor General of the Federation for the 2021 financial year. The House notes that Chorus Energy Limited remitted 1.2 billion naira, while Seplat Production Development Limited fully settled its obligation of 27.6 billion naira, all paid in dollars between 10th and 14th of March 2025. Meanwhile, the Public Accounts Committee has also recovered 199.3 million naira from 2 Nigerian banks, being unremitted value-added tax on transactions processed via the remitter platform between March and October 2015. The House of Representatives says it remains committed to upholding financial discipline and safeguarding public resources in national interest. President Bola Tinubu is committed to the completion of the ongoing federal road projects across the country before the end of his first tenure in office. The Minister of State for Works, Bello Mohammed Goronyo, stated this while inspecting sections 2 and 3 of the ongoing dryalization of Zaria Funtua Gosu Sokoto Road project.
Mainly security, which is they work on it, and there is a quite improvement on it. And we was facing some challenges of compensations, of relocation of some facilities.
The security situation is improving with the collaboration of both federal and state government. And I can assure you that Mr. President is very passionate about this road because it's linking about 5 to 6 states. The issue of compensation is squarely in the hands of the state governors, and we are pursuing it vigorously.
And the Rivers State House of Assembly says, contrary to insinuations in the social media, the House is poised to making sacrifices that will ensure good governance and smooth administration in the state. Chairman, House Committee on Information, Enemi George, at the news briefing in Port Harcourt, appealed to well-meaning citizens to urge Governor Siminalayi Fubara to adopt the appropriate channel to ensure the state budget is presented to the House and passed into law.
All of us must join hands to plead with the governor to do the right thing in the right and lawful way. So our allowances have been seized for about 1 year and 6 months now. We still continue to suffer. Yet, we are resolved to put all this behind us in the interest of our state.
The African Development Bank and the International Institute of Tropical Agriculture have reaffirmed their commitment to transforming Africa's agricultural landscape. This comes after the signing of a €5 million grant agreement in Abuja to support the continuation of Phase 2 of the Technologies for African Agricultural Transformation Program.
This additional financing of the third program that we are signing today is building on Phase 1, which the African Development Bank funded with $40 million, and Phase 2 with $27 million to scale up agricultural innovations, strengthen food security, and enhance climate resilience across the continent.
And those are the news highlights. Good Morning Nigeria continues with Ademola and Nyere after this time out.
From the Atlantic across the savannah to the Sahara, we rise, a land of the free, we know they tire. We dream great, our spirit is undying.
Resilient, rooted like palm tree, we sway in colors, with undying demand. We make solutions, we ignite passion, yeah. Ethnicity is unique, we have more than just a nation.
We are Nigeria, strengthening unity, we know they carry lives. We are Nigeria, together live the dream of a land with great destiny. We are Nigeria.
I am the Real Nigerian. Brought to you by the National Orientation Agency, NOA.
The sport is very, very important to the special kid needs. Engaging in this kind of activities, moving the wheelchair with the strength, is a form of exercise to reduce that stiffness of the muscle. It makes them to be self-dependent, not depending. We should believe that there is ability in their disabilities.
They asked me how I came this far. I told them I had to sweat. Sweat is chasing your dreams. Sweat is never giving up. Sweat is action, but can also bring germs. That's why I use Dettol Cool Soap with 5 degrees cooling sensation. Summer heat brings body odor, but Dettol Cool protects you from 99.9% of illness-causing germs and keeps you fresh.
TerraQ, unwrap joy, unleash taste.
What wakes you up in the morning? Is it the sunrise? Is it the alarm? No. It's your dream that wakes you every day. It's what drives you like a powerful engine. That's why you start strong every day with the rich, creamy taste of Nescafe 3-in-1, carefully crafted from selected coffee beans. You're on your hustle, and you won't stop until you succeed. Start strong. Finish strong.
No buy am. But why? No see say this Big Bull bag of rice no get the new Big Bull holographic seal. Not true.
Introducing the Big Bull holographic seal tape, your favorite authentic Big Bull rice, 50 kg and 25 kg. Now with holographic seal tape. This is to ensure you get the premium product from Big Bull rice. Do not buy if the holographic seal tape is not on the bag or is broken. Big Bull rice, tasty rice, nourished you.
The holy month of Ramadan is here again, a month to submit to the will of Allah, a month to share, a month to care, and most importantly, a month of goodness. Start well and end well with the goodness of Peak Milk at Sahar and Iftar, and share the nourishing goodness of Peak Milk with everyone around you. Ramadan Kareem.
Peak. Reach for your peak.
Imagine lovely meals you can cook with these ingredients. You spend heavily, but no guarantee of a tasty meal. Not making a right choice of seasoning cube can ruin your meal, money, and confidence. For a tasty meal, do not compromise. Choose Gold.
Use Terra Gold for the rich, consistent taste your loved ones crave for. Good for soups, stews, and jollof. Terra Gold. 1 cube, endless possibilities.
Little buddy, Big moves. Little brain. Big learning. Your little child is eager to do big things. Every sachet comes with the nutrients they need every day. Made from natural grains, contains protein and fortified with iron to support their physical growth, learning, and development. So you can fully enjoy your little one's big moments of growth.
If you want to become something, become a child again. Why be a patient? If you must worry, then worry about winning. Why worry about germs? When you come home, bring tales and stories. Why bring in germs?
Shield your families from germs. When Dettol is a part of every household bucket, then you and your family can stay protected from up to 100 illness-causing germs.
Everyday use of Dettol keeps my loved ones protected.
Thanks for staying with us. You're still on to Good Morning Nigeria on the network service of the NTA. Next is newspaper review. Stay with us.
Our newspaper reviewer, Chukwudi Okole Ogbaja, is right here this morning. Chukwudi, good morning to you.
Good morning, my dear. How are you today?
Very well, and you?
Do I look abused and roughed up? You know, the heat, how has it been featuring in your area?
Oh, well, I've been trying to stay hydrated. And,
no, you drink water? Within another 10 minutes, as if you didn't have a glass of water, 10 minutes ago.
I couldn't even sleep because of the heat.
You don't have light, you're on band A. What happened?
No, not because of that. Even with the...
he's on the lower rungs of band A.
No. We had light, actually. We had light. It's just that...
Band boy.
I don't like to sleep.
The only band who is Sabina Ekiti Community School band.
Sukudi.
Oh, you needed company. That's why you were hot.
Please, can we go for the papers now?
All right. Let's see what the papers hold this morning. We'll begin with the Blueprint News paper this morning, and it leads with $1.7 billion liabilities by 45 oil companies. Reps recover 28.7 billion naira from Chorus Energy, Seplat. The rider, 199.3 million naira of 6.8 billion naira excessive charges from banks too. All right, away from that, we have NDLEA naps 2 behind U.S. Italy-bound cocaine in prayer beads. That's on page 16. Allegations of fraud unfounded, false. That's coming from First Bank. Below the picture story, we have don't allow emotion dictate your decisions. Lamido tells Ed Rufai. The riders blast ex-governor over call for opposition to join PDP, go and take up teaching job. APC chieftain tells Ed Rufai. All right, troops arrest 2 notorious bandits, recover weapons in Plateau. Fubara's crisis caused by bad advisors. That's credited to Wike. Finally, we have in a green strip at the bottom of the front page of the Blueprint, Ramadan, NOA reaffirms commitment to national unity, civic responsibility. That's on page 7. Let's see This Nigeria next. This Nigeria leads with reps recover 28.7 billion naira from oil companies. Public Accounts Committee probe into $1.7 billion debts. The Federation account of 45 oil companies yields results. That's on page 2. And besides the masthead, NDLEA seizes large consignments of drugs across 6 states, FCT. That's on page 24. Below the lead story, we have Abalama Kalabari stand still as Ijo honor Wike. The writer, he has done a lot to empower Ijo sons more than any other person in recent times. That's on page 13. And finally, we have over 1,300 persons die from diphtheria. NCDC named Kano, Bauchi, Yobe, Katsina as high burden states. Demola.
Okay, thank you, Yanre. I have the Vanguard newspaper with me. And just above the nameplate, Rivers Government Assembly in wall of words over budget presentation. Fubara frustrating implementation of Supreme Court judgment. Rivers Assembly. Details on page 47. Serap sues Akpabio over Senator Akpoti Uduahan's suspension. Details on page 10. Then we have the global trade war. Naira value depreciates amid forex outflows. CBN intervenes with $50 million as Naira depreciates to 1,600 Naira. Currency dealer lament dollar scarcity, project further Naira depreciation. Banks not selling dollars to us. BDC operators seek CBN's intervention. Strange disease kills 5 Kebbi Varsity students. Details on page 46. We won't follow El-Rufai to SDP. Lamido, details on page 9. Then we have FIFA 2026 World Cup qualifier. Amoriche list, 13 pros for Super Eagles showdown. Then we have the Mr. and Mrs. My mother has woken up before everybody in the house, cleaned everywhere, cooked breakfast, and fixed the laundry. That's village life for you. And the wife replies, oh, baby, let mama stay with us so I can learn more about village life.
Did you hear that?
No, I mean, that's the way to solve the problem.
Of course, it argues for you. Abalama, what's the community you mentioned there?
Abalama, Kalabari.
Yes. You see, playing the ethnic card is the bane of African politics. Of course, what's happening now is not every job person that doesn't like me and all that. But you begin to ask yourself, how much does it help us as a people to grow politically? If I keep on remembering that your Egba people must help you against my Nwani people, those things don't lead anywhere. The more we de-emphasize ethnic politics, the more likely it is for the so-called dark continent to stir before it begins to grow. I am not a pessimist, but Africa, if Africa continues to play the ethnic and sometimes the religion card, it's not going to grow in real terms. So whatever is happening in Rivers, let them forget the ethnic card. Let them begin to look towards what is good for the people of Rivers, whether you're Pobo, whether you're Calabria, wherever you come from. Till we get to that level of reasoning, we are going to stay in the woods in terms of how African politics plays out. El-Rufai is receiving advice from Lamido. He's asking them to join him in SDP and all that. Of course, that pushback is going to happen. It's not going to be easy.
Yeah, that one says he's not following him.
Of course. What did you say?
It says they are not following him.
Definitely they are not. Because actually, when you look at El-Rufai's movement to SDP, my journalistic mind tells me that some people in the north are going to say El-Rufai is acting for himself. Some are going to say he's our son, who will go with him and all that. Again, the ethnic card begins to play in African politics. But at the end of the day, the plurality that it will bring into how we carry out electioneering, governance and all that helps the country grow. The more, the merrier. I'm not one of those who think that PDP and APC should keep on riding, not roughshod really, like a matador with the rest of the polity in terms of politics, So that's the way I see
it's a good development.
It's a good development. The more the merrier. The more the merrier. Yeah, you're throwing up something from your side?
Naira value depreciates amid forex outflows.
The bailout, if I may call it bailout, that has been coming from the CBN is actually the reason the Naira is managing that, existing around the 1,500, 1,550 and all that. What is going to shore up the value of the Naira at the end of the day is the kind of trading pattern you have is the kind of that's a trading pattern. I'm talking about the balance of trade between nations and all that. How much are you as a producer? What amount of foreign exchange do you attract to your country because of what you're giving out there? And again, Nyere will frown when I say that agriculture is what will rescue Nigeria, Africa at the end of the day. We must move to make sure that we are strong in terms of what we share with other people, because you can never live alone in the world. Trade is a must for you. Donald Trump is going to rescind some of his tariffs over time, because he's finding out that it doesn't work that way. It's a committee of nations. Rub my back, I rub your back. If you depart from that, over time you pay for it. No one has it all. There are so many things I need from Demola. There may be things Demola needs from me as well. Nearest additional mathematics, I would have loved to have it, so that there would never be such a thing as Chukwudi writing mathematics 3 times and failing it 4 times. I hope I've made you happy.
Anyways, you know, another interesting story is what the reps, or rather the House of Reps is doing, and you know, recovering.
The recovery.
28 years. When
yes.
I mean, the first question is, why should companies owe? Why? Must you be asked to do the needful? Or must you be begged or probed or questioned?
You know, the basic things you have to understand about the legislature is how they work. They work in either plenary or committees. But away from how their work is structured, the oversight function of the legislature can never be wished away. When some people think that the presidency is everything, the first bastion of democracy really is the legislature. That's the one that is representative of communities within Nigeria, if I may, districts within Nigeria, the people's true representatives. So their oversight, if it helps them do things for us, I think that shows up the belief or the potency of democracy. That's what I want to like to concentrate on. Because if they could get it from the oil companies, they could also get it from all the other people who have become predators.
Exactly.
While we are the prey. That's the point.
And they're making profit. It's really sad.
Oh, they are. They are making profit, but you get away with virtually anything you plan against the green, white, green. Impunity reigns. I know government is doing what they can to reduce it, but there are still so many loopholes you can, you know, manipulate.
And the sad thing is that some of these oil companies are managed by, you know, foreigners who would not attempt to do this kind of thing.
Where they come
from.
Because they're coming from a place where the law works. It's not where religion works.
Okay.
It's where the law works. They hold you accountable. We don't do that here. Even in Ghana, we don't do that here.
Anyways, another very serious issue of concern is this diphtheria outbreak in some states. Over 1,300 persons have died so far. And I'm trying to look at the statistics. So many people, so many cases have been suspected so far. Diphtheria is an airborne disease. Once someone coughs or sneezes, I mean, it's transferred. This is a serious...
I hope I don't talk ignorantly. I thought diphtheria is one of those childhood diseases. There are about 6 of them.
Yes, and vaccination is supposed to deal with this.
Yes, so I want to think it's affecting the children more than anyone else.
Exactly.
You know,
and of course, the fact that their immunity is lower, and then a big issue at the moment.
They are still growing immunity. They are still maturing. So it takes us back again to the gaps in our health system.
But it's not only for the children.
No,
also
but
for the adults.
Adults
yeah,
too,
the
adults are being vaccinated as well.
Preponderantly, children have this running battle with diphtheria, whooping cough.
They get vaccinated. Just that the vaccinated Nigeria continues. Stay with us.
Nigerian national flag represents our country's history, culture, and identity. It was designed in 1959. The colors are Emerald Green 2.0, which represents agriculture, and Immaculate White represents unity and peace. Know how to handle our flag. Illuminate the environment or don't fly the flag overnight. Do not fly a dirty or tattered flag. Take such flag to the nearest National Orientation Agency office for proper disposal and replacement. The national flag can only be flown at half-mast. on the directive of the federal government. The national flag must be flown at the same or higher height when displayed alongside other flags. Don't burn or allow the national flag to fall on the ground. Do not print, decorate, modify, or insert the coat of arms on the flag. Our national heroes are not buried with the flag. They are honored by presenting it to their next of kin during interment. Respect our national flag. Be a real Nigerian.
This message was brought to you by the National Orientation Agency, NOA.
The sport is very, very important to the special kid needs. Engaging in this kind of activities, moving the wheelchair with the strength, is a form of exercise to reduce that stiffness of the muscle. It makes them to be self-dependent, not depending. We should believe that there is ability in their disabilities.
With Nivea Dry Deo, you can keep moving forward in life with confidence. Nivea Dry Deo. Derma 72-hour active protection against sweat and odor with 0% alcohol to prevent irritation. Stay dry and fresh all day long. Skin is for moving forward, Nivea is for skin. Your favorite Nivea Deo, now in a smaller pack size.
The new Harpic sachets. It has a thick formula, so all you need is just one sachet for your toilet bowl. It gives 10 times better cleaning and big savings too.
Wow, Helen!
Sparkling clean toilet with Harpic sachet.
What food did you need?
Guys, food is ready.
To impress.
At break time, when my champ needs to keep going, he's going to need his favorite snack, containing calcium, iron, and fiber.
Milo Snacks, snack of future champions. Milo!
In a world hungry for goodness, with a splash of Golden Terra oil, a mom can transform a frown into a smile. Make a lunch hour a happy hour. Change no thanks into yes please. Provide care when our nearest and dearest needs it most. And resolve family feuds without blowing a whistle. Providing tasty, nourishing family meals is all that matters. The world needs moms, because where there are moms, there is hope, happiness, and love. Golden Terra Oil, or pure love.
They asked me how I came this far. I told them I had to sweat. Sweat is chasing your dreams. Sweat is never giving up. Sweat is action, but can also bring germs. That's why I use Dettol Cool Soap with 5 degrees cooling sensation. Summer heat brings body odor, but Dettol Cool protects you from 99.9% of illness-causing germs and keeps you fresh.
Our major currency unit is the Naira, while the minor unit is the Kobo. They are both in notes and coins. The Naira is more than just a medium of exchange. It bears the images of our heroes. So, stop abusing the Naira. It is a criminal offense to spray the Naira at events. Stop stepping on the Naira. It's not your enemy. Do not squeeze, ruffle, or write on the Naira. Handling the naira with dirty or oily hands can deface the naira. Love the naira as you love yourself. Be a real Nigerian. Do not abuse the naira.
Nigeria is perched on a treasure trove of solid minerals. Gold, coal, tantalum, tin, but none is more critical to our future or the world's future like lithium.
Let's talk about illegal mining operations. What is our strategy?
Thanks for staying with us. You're still watching Good Morning Nigeria on the network service of the NTA. Just before we bring in our guest for our conversation on Nigerian Correctional Service probe, let's take this background report by Timothy Yusuf.
The Nigerian government has launched an independent probe into the correctional service, focusing on allegations of corruption, abuse of power, torture, and degrading treatment. Consequently, an independent panel has been set up to investigate these claims with a mandate to reform the Nigerian Correctional Service (NCS). Findings reveal that the panel has already begun its work, reviewing cases involving senior officers who oversee custodial centers across the country. Some of the key areas under investigation include corruption allegations of bribery, embezzlement, and other forms of corruption within the NCS, abuse of power with accompanying claims of abuse of authority, harassment, and intimidation by NCS officials. Another focus is alleged torture, abuse of human rights, and degrading treatment of inmates. Analysts believe that the probe is a significant step towards addressing the long-standing issues within the NCS and ensuring that those found guilty are held accountable. Come with us as we now join our array of guests in the studio to take you deeper into the issues arising. How far with the Nigerian Correctional Service probe?
Many thanks, Timothy Yusuf, for that background report. Now time to introduce our guest, and it is a pleasure to welcome Dr. Magdalene Ajani, Chairman, Nigerian Correctional Service Probe Panel, and the Permanent Secretary, Ministry of Interior. Many thanks for joining us, ma'am.
Thank you so much, and good morning, Nigeria.
All right, also right here in our studio is Dr. Uju Agomo. She is the Secretary, Nigeria Correctional Service Probe Panel. Many thanks for joining us again, Dr. Uju.
Thank you very much. I'm happy to be here, and good morning, Nigerians.
So let me introduce the man in the midst, who is also a doctor, Dr. Ike Eze-Ugo. He's a member of the probe panel, Nigeria Correctional Services. Dr. Ugo, Eze-Ugo, you are welcome to the conversation this morning.
Thank you for having us, and good morning, our viewers.
Okay, let's start the conversation with the chairman of the probe panel, Dr. Ajani. Tell us about or introduce briefly to us the independent investigation panel set up, on these Nigeria Correctional Services and its mandate. What's your mandate?
Thank you so much. The Independent Investigative Committee on Nigerian Correctional Service was inaugurated last year by the Honorable Minister of Interior, arising from a lot of allegations against the officers of the Nigerian Correctional Service. And those allegations were a bit quite disturbing to the service. And so they were immediate and then long-term terms of reference. The immediate one was to look at the allegations about some inmates. First was the case of Bobrisky, that he was detained and didn't serve his term in the correctional service. And then the second one was the case of the Kuje prisons, where it was alleged that some inmates were paying money to staff of the Correctional Service. So that was the very first set of TORs, and then the second one was to look at all the allegations of torture, maltreatment of inmates, and the aim of it eventually is to have a holistic reform of the Correctional Service agency. So those are the things that we are to focus on. The first one, of course, we have submitted the reports, and then the second stage is still ongoing because this investigative committee is working over a period of 1 year. So we should be submitting our reports in October.
You are done with the second phase, right?
We are on the second phase.
On
the first phase has been concluded, and the report has also been presented to Nigerians.
Okay.
You said that it's a 1-year investigative committee. Why that long?
Because we're looking more on a holistic reform in the Nigerian Correctional Service. It's not a case of witch hunting, and if you want to really go in depth to look at most of the things happening, then you have to do a thorough investigation. We have 256 correctional centers in the country, and virtually we are present in all the states of the Federation, including FCT. These are things we're talking beyond the people. We're talking about our clients, the inmates. We're talking about the structure of the correctional centers. We're talking about the services that are being rendered. So we can't sit in Abuja and then make all the assumptions. So we are out on the field looking at what is going on, talking about the investigative panel, and we are also interacting with both the staff and then the inmates in most of the correctional centers.
All right, fantastic. Many thanks. You would add to that, Dr. Ezeogo. Many thanks, Dr. Ajani, for your opening comments. Maybe I should just get to Dr. Ezeogo since you want to add to what the Permanent Secretary has said. But you are acting independently in this committee. Yes, you know, from the first report that was submitted, what really were the findings?
Okay, the very first report was focused on the two cases, the Bobrisky case and then the Kuje case. With the Bobrisky case, we took our time to not just take what was flying on the media. We visited the various sites, facilities where he was sentenced to. The very first was Ikoyi Correctional Facility, and then the second he was moved from there to Kirikiri Medium, and from Kirikiri Medium to Kirikiri Maximum. We interfaced with the inmates, the staff, and we also did some forensics analysis on where he stayed and all of that. We made the report available. There was no evidence that he did not spend his jail time in the correctional facility as claimed or as alleged. But we also found that there were some sort of privileged treatments which we know that also they are not things that are not common in the system for now. Some of those privileged treatments were that we found that he used phone when he was there, and then he also had a room that is not in the general room, which happens in some places. Some correctional facilities have isolations for certain cases. Some of them could be as a result of health challenge or special presentation. And one of those special presentation from what we saw is he came up with the features of a woman, which will be, say, high-risk client. You can't throw him where you have all other men. So those are some of the things we found. But the key claim about whether he spent his sentence within the correctional service or not, that we couldn't find any evidence.
What are those privileged treatments? You talked about
I just mentioned them. I talked about him having phone, which is not supposed to be. I talked about him having a room. The room I would not say is not supposed to be, because there are isolation. There are rooms that are meant for isolation for special cases. And I did say that some of those special cases could be either as a result of health challenge or as a result of the kind of presentation we saw. He came with the presentation of features of a woman. And then you know what it means to put him in the
Under
same...
whose authority was he put in the special room?
There are levels of control on what happens in the correctional service. There are the zonal controller, the state controller, the in charge. The decision processes originate from the in charge, who is directly responsible for the facility, to the state controller, to the zonal controller, and to the headquarters. All of that we found, and then we were also, we tried to look at what could have influenced that, even though that decision is right, because he needs to be protected. Because, you know, the responsibility of the correctional service is to take and keep in safe custody and then return to court when the court demands. So if you take somebody who have a breast, for example, and put where you have men who have not, who don't even have conjugal visit and have been in there for about 6, 7, 8 years, what you may see at the end of the day may be something that will not be good for either the inmates. So for that particular one, I think they should even be appreciated for taking that decision. And so.
Okay, thank you very much, Dr. Eze-Ugo. Let's get a feedback from Dr. Agomo now. You are the secretary of the pro panel. Can you explain to us the method, or I mean, how did the panel conduct its investigation, you know, and what methods were used to gather, you know, evidence?
Okay, thank you very much. As the chairperson did explain, there are phases to this assignment. So the very first part was dealing with the 2 cases she highlighted. And what happened was, in terms of the methodology, was there was a need to look at on the spot, to move into that unannounced,
okay,
to move into those facilities and follow the trail. So for example, on the 12th of April, he was brought into Ikoyi, but interviewed, but he did not sleep in Ikoyi. And that same 12th of April, he was moved to the medium custodial center, as you have highlighted. We saw the cell where he kept him, which was an individual cell. We looked at the nature of all the other private cells that were in that special building, and tried to look at the facilities that that particular cell had. On the 22nd of that same April, he was moved from that medium security facility to the maximum. And part of what we're also looking at is documentary evidence. So, for example, he had applied for self-feeding, had indicated people who would be bringing the food on a daily basis. And we looked at the visitors register. And within the visitors register, within 10 days, we had 39 visits.
Oh, you mean an inmate can apply for?
Yes, that's they can apply.
Self-feeding.
You can apply and designate who would be the one you have apportioned. Okay. So it was obvious that within those 10 days that he was in the Krikri medium, there were visits, because we looked at the records. Okay. And those records showed, you know, the number of visits, and it was such a record that you would be sure that it's not like, I mean, you saw the trajectory of all of that. It was almost like what you can call a tamper-proof evidence of that. But there were also other records. So part of what was observed, because the major mandate was to say, did he sleep here or didn't he sleep here? And all of the evidence we saw, including from interviewing of inmates, from staff, interview of staff, and also looking at the records, as I had said, showed that he stayed there. But in our first report, we also catalogued all of the privileges and all of the other issues that we felt needed further investigation. Okay. So, for example, what were the procedure for providing whatever privileges were given to him, and then what can, because the idea is that it's not only about these individual cases, how can we use the information we have seen from immediate cases and then ensure that we put in place methods to ensure, you know, that future problems will not happen. We also looked at the nature of the cell in maximum.
Okay.
And, you know, what were the layout of that cell. And what would have given people the different impressions and all of that. So all of that are things that the final report will delve into. But the very first report said, look, this person, from all we have gotten so far, stayed inside this facility. And so it's about looking at document, it's about observation, it's about using interviews and all of that, and translating all of these things to come to a particular process. And all of the things we observed that were of concern, the major thing we want to now do further is to look at what had led to what, and how, what are the lessons that needs to be learned, and what are the processes that need to be put in place to ensure that the standards are kept.
Dr. Agomo, I remember that when this particular person, Bobrisky, was in court and he was asked whether he was male or female, I remember he said he was male. So I'm wondering, despite the features, would there be need for this extra privileges? I'm just asking. And then from the description that Dr. Ezeogu gave us about special rooms and all of that, you have dealt with the correctional service for so many years. Does it mean that if this Bobrisky case didn't come out, does it mean that we have VIP, inmates that get these special treatments? Because I'm just saying that, Bobrisky was what brought out this whole issue. So is it right that, some other inmates, maybe by virtue of their position or social status, get to be treated like inmates for real, while some others just get soft landing while in prison?
Okay, so on the issue of the very first question, when someone comes into custody, they would do a search. And if he didn't say he was a male, he would not be put in a male facility. So he declared he was a male. But physically looking at him, there were other features. Now, in some countries, there are designated facility for persons who are like that. It is, for example, in Greece, there are particular unit which included the keeping of persons who look like that. Now, this presented a peculiar circumstance that had never presented itself, and which was why part of what the panel recommended was now in terms of having a very specific procedure in terms of handling such matters. Now, you talk about the issue of privileges. Now, the issue of privileges, you find out that oftentimes the thing is that when you have privileges, these privileges have to be linked with incentive, that every inmate would understand what those incentives are, what he or she needs to do to earn the privilege. And I'll give you one example. In Ireland, for example, visits, the nature of visit that you're exposed to, whether you can meet your family members openly, will depend on whether you're a low-risk inmate and whether you are complying with the regulations. And there are some, obviously, they'll make sure that you don't even have physical contact with your family member. You'll be talking on the phone. So the inmate knows that if he wants this type of visit, this is what he needs to do. So part of what the panel is doing is to take all of the list, because we listed all the privileges we observed that was offered to him in the medium security facility. We listed all the privileges that we saw that was in the maximum security where he was moved from the 22nd. And we raised also concern because of the different categorization of facility being moved. That was also reflected in the report. But what was more important is that the panel now said, we want to dig deeper so that we understand what happens when an inmate, what are the processes an inmates go through to get this kind of privilege. So that where there are abuse of power, where there are corruption, where we can flag those. So that's part of what we're doing during the second phase. Digging deeper into what led to what privilege that was given.
Okay, all right, thank you very much. Dr. Ajani, earlier on you mentioned some of the allegations, but can you be a little bit specific about these allegations of corruption and abuse, in the correctional service, and how widespread are these allegations, and are they limited to a particular section or personnel?
Well, there were a couple of allegations on the inmates paying money to officers of the correctional service for one service or the other. Some claim that they have to pay money to be placed in like the private cells rather than the open dormitory like cells. Some also claim that they give money to officers to get better feeding. And the case of the Kuje one was really allegations against very senior officers of the correctional service, including the ministry. So we had to look at it clearly.
Including the ministry?
Yes.
Okay.
So I know that myself and the Honorable Minister did not know what they were talking about. And they even alleged then that the Controller General of Correctional Service was also involved and all that. So these were really huge allegations against the integrity of the service. And so we couldn't just take it and feel that, well, it's the usual talks and all that. But it helped us to see a couple of things. Okay. Is it just against Kuje Correctional Center? No. The allegation was right across the country. Lagos State was also involved, and you know that...
So it's widespread.
Yes. You know that even concerning the Bobrisky case, some senior officers are on suspension as we speak. And that's not just suspending people because their names were mentioned. Part of the investigations showed that some of them have cases to answer. So they are facing the disciplinary procedure of the service on those allegations. So we're still working. We're still reaching out to the correctional centers, and we're seeing a couple of things. We've had investigative hearings, public hearings. The one that we just concluded was a 2 weeks public hearing where officers of the correctional service came to at least defend themselves or answer questions to the petitions and allegations that were against them. And I must say that the service cooperated, because the acting CG definitely, we had a whole day for them to also bring up their own cases, the challenges that they are faced with in trying to manage the correctional centers and take care of our inmates. And beyond that, for all the officers who had cases to answer from across the country, he ensured that they came to Abuja, because the public hearing happened in Abuja here. They were all present. Those who couldn't come physically joined online. We had Zoom meetings where they could call in online, and then it was there to the hearing of the public. And we had a lot of live streaming of the whole session. So the reports will show whether all these allegations are true or not.
What are these challenges that they mentioned that is hindering their performance? You said they mentioned some of these challenges.
Mr. Demola, I'm sure you know that most of our correctional centers, particularly the ones in the urban centers, are overcrowded. Okay? So they go beyond taking inmates beyond the capacity that they are supposed to take, for which the correctional centers were built. And this is because inmates are brought from the from the courts, okay, and all when they come in, they try to at least take them first, trying to apply the act that says that if the correctional center is full to capacity, you can actually reject inmates, has been a huge problem. By the Correctional Service Act of 2019, if your capacity is full, the correctional custodian center in charge can actually write to the courts and all the stakeholders to say that our capacity is full, we can't take anybody. You do that within a week, okay, of getting to your full capacity. And it's mandatory for the stakeholders within 3 months to do things to decongest the correctional center. But what happens when they attempt to do this? A magistrate is saying, I'm not aware of this. So they've had situation where they want to dump the inmates at the entrance and go away. You have to think about the safety of this Nigerian that is being brought. As far as they are concerned, the court has sentenced this person to jail and they have brought the person to jail. Nobody is asking, how are you coping with these people? We are full. Where are we going to put them? So they end up taking everybody in. And then when you go to the place, you see how congested it is. But nobody is asking any question, how are you surviving? That's in terms of persons occupying the space. Then you talk about the feeding of the inmates. The feeding of the inmates is not done by the in charge of the correctional officers. People are contracted to supply the food, okay? And then we are talking about the number of inmates versus the quantity of food that is coming. Everybody has to eat. So they have to spread whatever it is that is supplied to them to reach everyone. Yes, there are portions that are stipulated for inmates that are serving, okay, in terms of the quantity of food, the portion of food they should be given. But do they really get those things supplied? There are a lot of things we need to look at in the correctional service and in service provision. So it's not just the officers alone. There are other stakeholders who are involved. The Nigerian police is involved, the court is involved, the state attorney generals and commissioners of justice are involved, because if you remember, the activities of the correctional service is no longer on the exclusive list. It's on the concurrent list as we speak. But are the state actors taking responsibility for their offenders? Because if you go to most of the custodian centers, over 80% of them, statistics, are state offenders. But yet, the state is not looking at taking their cases as at when due. You have people who are in custodian center awaiting trial 1 year, 2 years, 8 years, state offenders. What is the Attorney General of the state doing with the whole of the criminal justice system? Do they come to the court, to the custodian centers to actually see how they can decongest the place? I think it was only in Delta State, well, maybe I went to Delta State, where the State Attorney General and his team visit the custodian centers every quarter. And with that, they are helping to release clients who don't need to be there for too long.
All right.
When you mentioned the list of people that came for, that appeared before the panel, you didn't mention anything about the judiciary. Do you have them also? Did you invite them?
Well, for these 2 weeks,
yeah,
virtually all the stakeholders were there. The judiciary was there. The Federal Ministry of Justice was well represented.
Okay.
The National Judiciary Institute, Nigeria Judiciary Council, Legal Aid Council, Nigerian Bar Association, they were all present, okay? And of course, Nigerian Police was also there.
All right.
So virtually everybody that needed to come was there.
Many thanks, Dr. Ajani. Let's get to Dr. Agomo now. She spoke about officials of the Nigeria Correctional Service, coming for, the probe and all of that. Did you get, if you like, ex-inmates, inmates, those still serving, their family members, to come on this panel, to speak about their experiences also?
One thing about the panel's approach was inclusivity. The panel made public its email addresses. They've addressed for the distribution of physical copies of complaints and petitions, as well as phone numbers that people can reach. So we had complaints submitted, both from inmates and also from staff. It's important to mention that part of what the panel is also looking at is also the welfare of staff. So we also had complaints where staff came and complained against the violations that, that they felt. So one thing that was very, very critical, and I think is important to mention, because, this is the second public hearing. After, for the first audit, first visit to certain locations was done last week of November. And those assessment that was done to 8 locations, 7 states plus the FCT, what happened was that between 12th and 13th of December, we had the first public hearing, which was just 2 days. And then we had reports from all over those places, including all of the terrible things and, challenges and other things that they observed. So that was made, and it was also a public hearing. Now, in relation to this, what was now happening was that we put on the schedule for the 2 weeks the treatment of complaints by inmates, to address your question, the treatment of complaints by staff, as well as stakeholders' consultation on the following thematic issues: feeding of inmates and utilization of agricultural centers of the correctional service, issue about high number of awaiting trial and the problems around access to justice. 2, issues around infrastructure of the correctional service. Issues around healthcare, that's another one, healthcare. We had a plethora of health professionals and associations, Association of Psychologists, Association of Psychiatrists in Nigeria, pharmacists and all of that. They were there at the panel. Then we also looked at issue of vulnerable persons in the custody, including women, children and young adults, mentally ill persons in custody, physically challenged persons in custody, and the aged and all of that. So these were the major focus in terms of the thematic areas. And we haven't stopped, because part of what the panel is also going to have is third and hopefully the last public hearing, which will do a lot around the issue of additional thematic topics to look at. So inmates did have opportunity to see. And another thing is that we also shielded them. So those who felt threatened, they could make their presentation without being identified. So that also happened. Because one of them, for example, was in a hospital. And we made sure it was just only his audio that you were hearing, in that regard, in terms of the complainants that we received. So I think one of the things that the permanent secretary said, which our chairperson mentioned, I really need to flag it, because this is for me perhaps the first time, because I was also a member of the panel in terms of the SARS. And there were times we'll be looking for particular police officer, calling them from Okuzo, they won't appear. But with this, the correctional service did not only bring the particular respondents, that is those people that were alleged to be perpetrators on each of the complaints. All of them came. People came from Bayelsa, they came from Plateau, they came from Kaduna, they came from Ogun State, Abeokuta, they came from Edo State, they came from Rivers. But another thing they were doing every day, because we had the specific calendar and a schedule which indicated what would be the focus of the panel each day. So you can't believe it that if we're focusing on healthcare, the correctional service will bring their officers related to healthcare to be in the panel that day. When we focused on issues around staff welfare and all that, they brought human resource and all of that, their, what do they call it, their cooperative or what they call focus and all the rest of it, and CSIW system, which are the welfare packages that they have for staff. So that for the panel looked very encouraging. And that also we are believing, because there is a new person now at the head of affairs, so in the correctional service. So given the cooperation that the RTCG has given to the panel, we just feel that once this recommendation is there, it should give them enough impetus, because now it has a roadmap to impress Nigerians, because what the panel is trying to do is to have a correctional service that all Nigerians, in short, the whole of Africa should be happy about.
Is this the first panel we're having?
Yes.
Of the correctional service?
Yes, this way, yes. This is the first time what is happening. There has never, we have had instances of prison decongestion and reform, but nothing ever like this. We've had some stuff of course, we knew about Oputa panel, we knew about the NSAS, but this is the very first time this searchlight is being beamed on the correctional service for a holistic reform. And it is so important that part of what was also playing out is that the level of support that is needed must be such that it must be multi-sectoral. It must be such that every profession must see what it can do. Whether you are in the education, whether you are in the health sector, whether you are in the private sector, whether in the public sector. I mean, the other day I was seeing the tape from Burkina Faso. See what is happening with agriculture. You know, inmates can actually do a lot in terms of the agricultural products and make Nigeria, you know, happy in terms of what, including the non-custodial measures. You can we can even have non-custodial measures in terms of agriculture. So, for example, people go and do community service in the farm. They go there every day and they are returned back. They don't. You're not bearing the cost. Okay. So we need to think a little bit more creatively, and I think that's the part of what the panel is trying to. Okay,
recommend. That will be part of your recommendations.
We're trying to see the whole picture so that it will be a holistic and sustainable reform. Not you make recommendation and it's lying down somewhere. So part of also the approach of the panel is that issues are solved. You know, the ones you can solve immediately. That's happening. The chairperson can actually direct that immediate thing, depending on the nature of what we're seeing.
Which issues have you been able to solve immediately?
Oh, there are quite a lot of them. I'll give you some example. There were some officers that complained that when they retired, for example, vehicle was not given the necessary staff that was supposed to be given, assigned to them. To this particular officer that was not given. Instantly, the chairperson, you know, directed that letter be given the next day or something like that, and feedback given to him. So immediately, because it was something that could be resolved within that sphere immediately. There were instances where certain things that the Controller General could make to be activated in relation to things that have immediate need and an immediate response. Okay. But of course, there are things that requires more time, which is now to unearth everything through the process of the investigation, and then be able for us to now say, these are the concrete recommendations we're making on this, on the basis of this. As we said, it has to be holistic. It has to be sustainable.
It has to be holistic.
It has to be sustainable, because we don't want tomorrow again, we are back again and saying, it has to be such that we look at sustainability.
Okay, Dr. I would like to follow up on what some of the things that you said, but I want Dr. Ugo to answer that question. You talked about whistleblower. So some people coming, you know, to give evidences. What protection mechanism in place do you have in place, you know, to protect, you know, witnesses who come, you know, to forward or to report wrongdoing?
Okay, it comes in two ways. The very first one is that we give the witnesses the option to decide whether they want to come public or not. So nobody is compelled to come public because he or she wants to give information. So those who want to be anonymous in their whistleblowing, we take their information in a manner that does not expose them, one. Okay. And then we also have seen cases, like in one case where a particular inmate was willing to give information. We asked, he said no, he wants to give the information. We took time to explain to him the implications of giving the information. He insisted that that's how he wanted to give the information. So we knew that probably he has gotten to his limit and he wants to speak up. And he also said clearly that I want to give it personally so that I can look at the faces of the individuals I'm accusing and tell them, and then I want to hear them respond to me, even though we know that that could put him at risk. When he insisted, we allowed him give his information, but we made sure that we follow up with both the in charge, the zonal, and the state controller to say we need a special protection for this person. And they assured us, and we also gave contacts and reached out to their lawyers to say, wherever you see any threat, let us know. And for the in charge, for that particular facility, we have been in touch with him for not less than 3 times since we left there, including the whistleblower himself. So, but the key protection is that whistleblowers have options. You must not come public because you want to give information. And when you give information, your information is protected. If you look at the setup of the panel, it's only 5-man panel. And the ministry, the honorable minister in his wisdom decided to make it a compact panel so that we can also be sure that whatever we are doing with respect to confidentiality of information and management of that can easily be handled. So that's what it is.
Fantastic. Many thanks, Dr. Ezeogo. You said 5-man panel. We have 3 in the studio, so that means all that we need to know about this panel we have with us. We'd like to get back to Dr. Ajani. You know, while you spoke, you talk about all the other stakeholders involved in this. It's not just about the correctional service. And I'm thinking, do you see the report of this panel, you know, recommendations, you know, the way forward, being implemented to the letter? I want to know what you think about the body language of the other stakeholders involved in this. I mean, the judiciary, the police, like you mentioned, the contractors. I mean, it's a whole circle. The correctional service may be determined, I'm ready for change, but do you think we can see change in these other sectors that are involved in how the correctional service runs?
Well, from what we have witnessed in this last 2 weeks hearing, yes, I see a change, because the hearing brought out a lot of information to them. The magistrate in the courts does not know what is happening in most of the custodian centers. So we had picture representation of what we saw in most custodian centers, and giving them live statistics of what you saw on the field was eliciting a lot of response from them. And already the NJI is talking about having more trainings and exposure for the magistrates and the judges that are under their supervision. Same thing with the Judiciary Council. But beyond that, by the time we are wrapping up most of this, and like when our first set of recommendations are coming, we are going to have a deeper interaction with all stakeholders in preparation for the implementation. Because yes, we found this, we've discussed it, we've gone to the depth of it to see what is causing it. The overall objective of the work of this committee is a holistic reform of the correctional service and services provided at the custodian centers. So with our first draft of recommendation, part of the things we intend to do is to have a deeper engagement with all the stakeholders towards the implementation. So at that point, we'll be having conversation with all the state attorney generals of the Federation, of the states, the Ministry of Justice, the Nigerian Police Force, and all the people who send inmates to the custodian centers. And then we also need to start looking at the non-custodian measures, okay, for cases that shouldn't be in the custodian center. So we pray and hope that by the time we do that, we will be getting more response to the implementation strategies, okay, for the reforms of the service. So we are hopeful. And from what we have seen, the body languages, like you said, it's something that is achievable, because nobody is really happy with what they are seeing that was presented to them pictorially.
Okay, thank you very much, Dr. Ajani. Let me go back to Dr. Agomo there. And I want to just find out, you mentioned about, issue of, abuse and corruption. How can the probe ensure that those responsible for all these abuses and corruption are actually held accountable and brought to justice?
I will answer you this question in 2 parts. But before I do, I want to connect with what the chairperson had mentioned. Do you know the way to ensure the implementation of the recommendations of this panel lie in all our hands, especially the media? And I will explain what I mean by that. We need to have a commitment from the media to make sure that these issues do not go away. You have to constantly put it in the front burner for general public discourse.
Let me just ask you one question. You will continue
Yeah.
in this, your thought. Do you have any media person in your panel?
Yeah, this is
as
what we
member?
have a media strategy.
Okay.
And what we did during the 10 days of sitting of this last 2 weeks, we had media across both electronic and print coming. And at the end of every session, we had a media brief. And if you look around in terms of what was coming out, you see consistency in terms of focusing on the focus for the day. Because, you know, each day had what we were focusing on. Now, I want to come back to explain what I meant about what we need from you, the media. We found out that for policy makers to make consistent reforms, you need to ensure that both the frequency and the quality of reportage on that issue is sustained. So it's not only that, so on each of those thematic issues, you keep talking, just like what you're doing today. So we want to commend you. But then when the progress is coming, you should also point to say, oh, as at this has happened. And then part of what the panel was doing was also to look at 31st of July 2019, the then president signed into law what is seen by a lot of people as the most progressive piece of legislation for correctional service in Africa, the Nigerian Correctional Service Act of 2019. Now, the implementation has not been what it's supposed to be. So the panel, what we kept doing was we kept making references to the provisions of the Act in relation to what we're seeing. We kept asking the Correctional Service to give us the statistics and status of the compliance on each of the provisions. And the one they have a problem, let's know why. Because sometimes they may be not in compliance because of certain problems. Because if the panel understands what those problems are, we will know what to do. So, for example, you heard the chairperson mention the issue about when he says when the correctional center is beyond the designated capacity, that they should activate this early warning signal. That is your section 12, 4 to 12. So why is the judiciary not helping its work? You heard her talk about the non-implementation of non-custodial measures and the need to do it. That's the whole of the part 2. Start from section 37, sub 1 of the Nigerian Correctional Service Act. Why are we not implementing it? What is the budgetary allocation to non-custodial implementation for the correctional service? The same thing, you go to talk about the issue about the staff welfare, because many a time the staff will think you talk about inmates, you don't talk about us. When you look at section 26, section 27, it's all about staff welfare, staff training and all of that. How are we doing in terms of the compliance around this? You talk about certification of good behavior that are provided under section 14, section 13. How, almost everything that needs to be done. How is this to put it? Let me give you two simple examples. Section 34 and section 35 of the law talks about every state of the federation having designated facility for young offenders. Okay. And then designated capacity for female. We know that now the young offenders facilities are very limited. In Kwara, in Lorin, in Kwara, we have in Abeokuta too. We have in Kaduna that is functional. Mm-hmm. So how do we ensure that all the others do have what they need to have? So my point here is that it is possible to make happen, but you will also support making it happen. As a matter of fact, without the media, the challenge is that even if reform happens, it can be sustained. So both the showcasing of the issues, but also tracking of the progress. So when good things are, you can say, okay, on this one you have scored well, on this one you haven't scored well. The same thing in terms of now we are talking about the concurrent placement of correctional service in the concurrent legislative list. Some states have started passing the law. Ebonyi, for example, has passed the Ebonyi State Correctional Service law. For Abia State, it is before the State Assembly. I think it has gone first reading. We have Anambra, we have Edo, we have Kano, we have, I think, Plateau, and maybe Adamawa and Lagos, all working on the same issue. So my point is that when you are doing that, other states can key in and know what can be done to bring the reform as that is needed.
All right.
But you have not answered my question, which is to ensure that those responsible for all these abuses, you understand, are brought to justice.
So I told you I was going to do two parts, but I didn't want to lose the opportunity of stressing your role in that.
Yes.
So one of the things that the panel did was, all of the cases, because those individual cases, we are going to have report on each of the culpability of each of the perpetrators, is, like whoever is alleged perpetrator regarding a particular case. So I tell you, there was a particular case that we saw, but then the respondents that were indicated by the complainant when we were dealing with the matter, we now knew there were other persons who we should be talking to. And then the panels, in its wisdom, said, these ones, this should happen to it, but we need these additional ones, because we want to make sure that it is the persons who are culpable that we're dealing with directly. So that will happen, and the issue will also be followed through. And the good thing is that you know that the Ministry of Interior is the supervising ministry of the for the correctional service. We also had the board in attendance. You know, the board that also supervises, which is in charge of our recruitment, promotion, and dismissal, and all of that, disciplinary actions. So regarding those, the processes are already put in place to ensure that, one, you will deep into know who is the real violator in terms of these particular cases that came up. But as you know, the panel looks beyond that too, to now talk about the holistic pattern, because what complaints that you have, there are many that may not have come before us. So we decide on what has come before us, but then also we use what we have seen in the case to then understand the process, to know the recommendation to make for a more holistic and sustainable impact.
All right, many thanks, Dr. Agomo. Now, let's get to Dr. Ezeogo. We've been talking about all the issues, but we know that, like already mentioned by the Permanent Secretary, one of the key factors responsible for how our correctional services is lack of funding. Many people have said, well, it's lack of funding. But I want to ask, is it really lack of funding, or is it mismanagement of funds? I'm asking that this year, for example, the federal government has budgeted $45.2 billion for the Nigeria Correctional Service, and about $38 billion is going to feeding. I mean, every year there's always a budget, for the Nigeria Correctional Service. In your own view, because you're an independent, a body in this panel investigation, do you think there are other areas that we need to deal with, away from this inmate issue or officers issue? Do you think there are other issues that are affecting the way the correctional service functions?
Yes, there are. What we're doing, we are taking time to look at the correctional service, their operations, beyond what is reported and beyond what is seen on the surface. And then we're also looking at smart ways of running government enterprises. Funding, of course, is an issue, and I know it's not peculiar to correctional service, because I can't point to any government agency that gets sufficient funding. I'm sure when NTA was funded by government, they never got enough. But again, that doesn't mean that there is no room for improvement in funding. For example, the amount of money currently approved or allocated for feeding cannot normally feed any person, normal person. 750 naira is what they are currently feeding with, even though there's an approval for 1,125 naira, which has not kicked off. So, and even at that 1,125 naira
per day, right?
Per day, per day. All of us go to the market, so you know that that's 3 square meter. I don't know whether it's triangular meal or square meal. So we know
nobody eats 3 square meal any longer.
That's why I say triangular. So it could be triangular, but it's not even only about feeding. There is also money for infrastructure, because I know that if government have more allocation or provisions for infrastructure, some correctional services may require upgrade or even relocation, like some of them that where they are located when they started were good enough, but urbanization have taken over those places that they are no more good for, where you keep high-risk inmates. So, and so many other things, including their logistics. The level of vehicles provided, or the number of vehicles provided for correctional service operations or logistics is barely enough. And some people may not understand it. In a place where a correctional facility house inmates that are supposed to be taken to about 10, 15 local governments in a state, and they have only 2 or 3 vehicles, to do that. You can imagine what it means. And court has time. Court wouldn't wait for you. So by the time they do the merry-go-round from one location to another, they may get to the end of the court where the cases have been mentioned and then stood down. And not only that, also, even the amount of money for what we have seen provided for running those logistics, it means that government need to step up. But we're not only looking at what government can do, because there are creative ways of solving problems. Some of the things we're looking at, again, when I talk about innovative or smart ways of running government enterprises, is also to be able to open the eyes of the...
Dr. Ezego, we would just like to interject you now, because the director is calling for a break. When we come back, you will complete your thought. So we take a break now. The discussion continues. Stay with us.
If you want to become something, become a child again. Why be a patient? If you must worry, then worry about winning. Why worry about germs? When you come home, bring tales and stories. Why bring in germs?
Shield your families from germs. When Dettol is a part of every household bucket, then you and your family can stay protected from up to 100 illness-causing germs.
Everyday use of Dettol keeps my loved ones protected.
When we think about the digital economy, you can see it as the marketplace for digital goods and services. And increasingly, it's becoming a force to reckon with and an incredible contributor to economic growth, because we've seen the growth in technology and digital platforms. Technology has it really permeated every aspect of life and business, the way we live, the way we work. And when we talk about the digital economy, we're really talking about leveraging technology and digital platforms in a powerful way to drive growth, to drive solutions to problems, to drive applications, and to provide services.
The digital economy is something that has the potential to help Nigeria leapfrog a lot of its development challenges, right? Because think about what the mobile phone did for Nigeria years ago. That is the potential we have for digital, because it has a way of reducing the barriers to innovation. It has a way of being able to transform service delivery, whether it's government's delivery of services or whether it's services in the health system, where people can use digital to actually be able to see their patients better. But it takes a lot to realize that potential of digital. The first thing is like every other thing, there's an infrastructure you have to build to be able to make sure that digital economy can thrive. Think of something like, capturing that happens in Nigeria, right? Where you capture, people's biometric when they go for a driver's license, when they go for passports, and each of those are separate things. Largely a system where you're able to streamline that and actually have a platform that exchange biometric information that makes it easier for people to access passports, easier for people to register to vote. But today it's very tough, right? But those are basic infrastructure that needs to be invested in. A lot of it is through government and private sector collaborations to make it happen.
If we're looking to accelerate growth in the Nigerian space, we really need to look at enabling the digital economy. That includes providing digital infrastructure, connectivity, because that's the highway, like the highway that everything rides on. We need to think about digital capacity building in terms of the suppliers to the economy and also the consumers within the economy. So a robust digital literacy initiative. The good thing about technology is that, one, it helps you to transcend boundaries. Two, it creates a level playing field, really, because if you create a solution, a technology-based solution that is applicable in this environment, that same technology can be applicable, exported to other environments. And, technology platforms also help drive collaboration, right? When we're thinking about innovation, when we're thinking about business growth, collaboration is an important part of that. So when we think about the impacts with the rest of the world, we find that actually technology platforms are giving us an opportunity to engage more actively, to collaborate, to create partnerships, to even export our knowledge and services for people to engage with all the great things I'm talking about technology and digital platforms. They need access, internet access, broadband access. So we need to make sure that access is more available and affordable for the average user.
The most important thing is to think about where you want to go as a country and actually what type of policies are going to help get you there. You know, there are examples of countries who've been able to transform using digital, for example. There are very clear things those countries did to be able to make it happen. So a lot of this, the pathway to be able to solve these problems are not mysterious, right? It takes courage of the policymakers to be able to understudy some of these things and bring in the policies that work to be able to help them.
The stakes are high as the Super Eagles of Nigeria are back in action in the 2026 FIFA World Cup qualifiers as the hunt for a ticket to North America heats up. The stage is set as the Super Eagles head to Kigali to take on Rwanda's Amavubi at the Amaro Stadium on Friday, the 21st of March. Rwanda versus Nigeria. It is first versus fifth in Group C. It is 90 minutes of passion and endless skill. Don't miss a second of the action. Watch it all unfold right here on the 21st of March.
Afro Sport, your freedom of sport.
All right, welcome back. It's the Good Morning Nigeria live on the network service of the NTA. Our guest is still very much with us, and our focus this morning is on the Nigerian Correctional Service probe. Before we went on that break, Dr. Ezeogo was speaking to us about funding and whether or not it is sufficient, if there's mismanagement anywhere, and some of the other issues that the panel needs to focus on as it comes up with a comprehensive report at the end of the day. You can go ahead.
Thank you. I was talking about funding. Of course, I said that there are gaps for what we have seen in funding, which means that government need to step up. But it's not just about funding. Remember, I talked about smart, creative, and innovative ways of running government enterprises, and then dealing with the processes, bottlenecks, and all the rest of them. Assuming you throw in the fund and the system processes are not properly harnessed and aligned to deliver the way it should deliver, the fund will still go down the drain and not be able to deliver anything. And those are part of what we're looking at in this. A typical example, for example, we've talked about the farm centers. The Correctional Service have farm centers. And those farm centers, of course, there are challenges with some of them. But there are also some of them that more can be made out of them if we are able to bring in those innovative and creative ways of running business and government enterprises. And some of them also, it's not just about the individuals there. It's also about creating strategic partnership, which was part of what we're looking at. Some places where the government fund is not enough and we could be able to a broker partnership with medical associations, for example. We can break partnership with open partnership with farmers who have the resources to farm. They could go into partnership with Correctional Service and then begin to generate more revenue, more food, not only for the Correctional Service, for the general public. That's part of it. So our key goal is not just about identifying problems, but also creating solutions around the problems. Government must step up their funding. I have given an example of the challenges of moving inmates from the facility to court. That's something that really needs to be dealt with. And then, but sometimes also from what we're seeing, it's not only about government. We observed that most states or all states, for example, buy vehicles for police. They buy vehicles for civil defense. They buy vehicles for DSS. They buy for the army to provide security, isn't it? But they hardly buy for correctional service as support. We're not saying government should depend on that. The same way they support police. Now, police will use those vehicles to do raid, and then where do they dump the people? They pay from the raid in the correctional service. And then if there are no vehicles or logistics to take those people to court, congestion will remain. We'll have issues.
Back to square one.
So all of these are things that we're looking for holistic approach to bringing about solutions, so that whatever solution or recommendation we're making will be enduring. So funding from government need to increase, but also the managers of those funds, the correctional service officers, we need to also upgrade their approach to managing government enterprises, and then partnership also with different organizations, CSOs, institutions, can also help to relieve all of this and support. The same way that states strategically support other security agencies can also help in dealing with all of these issues on the short run, while we look for mid-term and long-term solutions to that.
Okay, thank you very much, Dr. Eze Ugo. Now let's come back to the chairman of the Pro panel now, Dr. Ajani. Earlier on, you mentioned some of the privileges, that some of these inmates enjoy at the correctional service centers. Can you list some of these, and those who are supposed, who are the people that really enjoy these privileges, and why? Then secondly, I want to ask, some people ask me, somebody sent me a text now, he said, did they actually invite Bobrisky? Because, Bobrisky and this Kuje prison actually triggered this Pro panel. Did you invite Bobrisky?
Okay. When we did the first phase of this investigation, remember that Bobrisky had finished his jail term and had left the custodian center. But we invited him, and even invited his lawyer, but they refused to come. Okay, and you can't force anybody to come. All you do is do the invitation, have conversation with them. I think the legal department of the ministry engaged his lawyer, and they gave the reasons why they wouldn't want to come. But the key thing in that phase one was to establish that Bobrisky served his jail term in the custodian center. And every indication, all the records were there to show that he served his jail term. From the day he was admitted into the custodian center, even all the transfers to the day he was discharged. And the records are there for everybody to see.
Okay.
So what are the privileges that people enjoy? I don't want to call them privileges, like Dr. Agomo had alluded, that in different climes, there are things that would just happen, okay, for inmates. When you have a VIP or people of high social status in the society, they are there in the custodian center. Are you going to put them in the open dormitory, or where you have single rooms?
Does it now say we have big thieves and small thieves?
No, don't let us go there.
I'm just saying. I'm just asking, because it's like someone.
It's not everybody in the custodian center is not a thief.
I'm just assuming that, say, for example, the crime, for example, is stealing.
Some are still awaiting trial. They haven't been condemned. Okay, so those ones are innocent or to proven otherwise, right? And this is just a question for me and you, okay? You have high-profile status individuals in the correctional center. We are seeing the reality of what is going on in our correctional centers. You have the dormitory, you have the isolated rooms, you have rooms where there are just probably like 2 people or 4 inmates occupying. Where are you going to put those people? Where are you going to put those people? What we are looking at is that eventually we should be able to reform our custodian center to the point that it will be comfortable for all the inmates.
As a matter of fact, the UN recommendation is as much as possible for countries to begin to shift a little bit away from the dormitory life. But you know it's going to take God knows how long because of the processes. But what the panel's position, you know, remember I said to you that in that first report, we listed all the privileges. So in this second phase, we want to look at those privileges and the condition and know what are the recommendations that will flow out of it. Who are the persons that assess it? What are they legitimate? Is it in line with international practices, or are there things that needs to be changed? You know, and the point I was making earlier was the fact that privileges are used as incentive, but it has to be something that is accessible to every inmate, and the criteria has to be clear. So you need to know, what do I need to do to earn this? So if I behave well, for example, I may earn this type of visiting arrangement. I just give that as an example. So, or if I'm sick, like if people who are sick, I may need this, or if, you know, different approaches. Okay. But this is something that is part of the second phase. So I just wanted to mention that we haven't drawn up the recommendations regarding the application of privileges. That's part of what we are going to look at in this.
Just a quick addition to what Dr. Ajani said. It's not just that the VIPs are given VIP treatment because they are VIP. There are practical scenarios. For example, if a governor is thrown into correctional facility, and
former governor,
and he is thrown into the place where you have all the criminals, the first is that there is this anger against those who are high up in the society.
Isn't that why there are officials there to, you know?
No, but they don't sleep with them inside. They won't sleep with them inside the court.
But
so
isn't that where the correction is in the first place?
That's
for those people who are big, who are up there, who do what is wrong, that gets them in jail.
You haven't understood me. A typical example was a police officer, the renowned police officer that was thrown to Kuje. You remember? Let's assume that there are criminals that he encountered in the course of his job, and he made them to be prosecuted and convicted, or they were going through a waiting trial, and you drop the same officer in the same cell with them. Do you think he's going to come out alive?
He
won't come out alive.
I think the best way to understand this is when you look at the criteria for assessing any privilege, you understand. So part of that criteria could be safety. So
okay,
if
that's
so that's
exactly
the question. I think it's better we look at that.
Yes, that's
and
that's
then,
what
as I said, the panel hasn't. We haven't fully dealt with it. All we have done so far is to list in our first report the ones we saw in the 2 facilities. Now we are also capturing the privileges we are observing in other centers. Now the next thing will now be to look at how do people assess it? What are the things we can recommend? You know, because it has to be fair, it has to be just, it has to be also compliant with international standards. But that's part of second phase work. We haven't.
All right, well, we're looking forward to when the second phase report will be out, and of course when the whole investigation would end, and you know there'll be recommendations, and we hope that all the parties involved would, do their bit to ensure that there's a complete correction of the correctional service. But as we round up the conversation, Dr. Ajani, I'd like you to share your thoughts with us. What really I mean, when you started as a panel, you had a target. You knew what you would like to achieve at the end of the day. As you begin to round off, you said that in October you'll be done. What do you expect? What should Nigerians be expecting, really, at the end of the day? What are we likely going to see? What are the reforms that would likely be birthed as a result of this?
Well, we look forward to having a reformed correctional service where both non-custodial and custodial measures are implemented with well-managed custodian centers, and all the state actors taking responsibility for what they need to do. Having the state come in to manage their state offenders and get the cases attended to as at when due, so that people are not staying in custodian centers for a long period awaiting trials. We also look forward to the judiciary playing their role and making sure that cases that shouldn't be in the custodian centers are not even sent there at all. So they apply the non-custodial measures. We look at a future where underage people are not put in custodian centers with adults, okay? And we also look to the future where the welfare of the correctional officers are well taken care of. And of course, feeding our inmates appropriately with better correctional services in place in the centers. We're talking about vocation centers, education. We currently have them happening in some of the centers, but we are saying that this will become like the norm, where people have the option to either go to school or learn one vocational trade or the other, because we are no longer a prison, we are a correctional center. So it's no longer a place of incarceration, but a place where people are rehabilitated and eventually reintegrated back into the society. And the society also will have to step down on the stigma attached to people who go to the correctional centers.
Yeah, thank you very much, Dr. Ajani. Okay, let's get Dr. Ogoma now. And I just want you to tell us, what message would you send to the Nigerian police, especially when it comes to the importance of, correctional reform?
It's just to say that the correctional service and correctional centers is like the barometer to check what happens across the whole of the justice system, as well as what happens within the society. I mean, it's always said that if it can get it right there, then that society is right. So given the issue that we have at hand, I think it is important that Nigerians should see this as an emergency. It is also important that every Nigerian, irrespective of your sector, should find a role of how to connect and provide whatever support you can give. If we do it, it is better for us as a people. So both the private sector, public sector, and when I mean public sector, all of the agencies of government, at all of the tiers of government, the federal, the state, the local government. It's also about how the voluntary sector can also key in. If we do it, it's not because you love correctional service, but because you are making it safer for every one of us. Everybody you see in custodial center, unless the person dies in there, is going to come out someday. And because of that, we have to really invest in what happens to them while they're there, so that our communities, our states, and our nation will be safer. And that's what
Thank you so much. We're out of time. Really, just crossed my mind that we didn't talk about jailbreaks and how we can prevent, future reoccurrence, of that. But Dr. Ezeogo, your final thoughts as we round up the conversation.
Okay, we need all hands to be on deck. What the Ministry of Interior want to do with this is not a piecemeal approach. It is a holistic and enduring reform. And every reform that is meant to achieve its purpose starts this way. Have a thorough examination of the system so that whatever that is there as an underlying cause, you can unearth it and then be able to deal with it in the most holistic and effective way. So one, with the approach we have started practically is what it should be to deliver what the ministry is looking up to, and that will make Nigerians proud. But we need all stakeholders.
Thank you very much.
All hands on deck, all stakeholders in the criminal justice system, the police, the judiciary, and all the law enforcement agents. We need them.
Thank you very much.
And then we need also the public to support. Dr. Ju Gomo has already talked about the media. We need the public to support by bringing information, joining even in the public hearing. That's why we're not doing